Blessed Day Reflection by Abia listeners. My name is Abia Grant, and we are here to reflect on our life journey. We will be discussing topics related to self awareness, self improvement, and mental health. Also, the purpose of this safe space is for us to be free to discuss the ups and downs, celebrate the wins, and talk about ways to improve the lows. So, welcome to this podcast, and I hope you gain something from this time we share together. Hello, everyone. How are you doing? It is your girl, Abia Grant. Welcome back to another episode of Reflection by Abia. I hope that you guys are doing well and that you are having a good day. I'm doing pretty good today. Obviously, we are recording on Friday. Today is the 31st of January, so we're at the end of the month. We're rolling into February, I guess tomorrow? Yeah, rolling into February tomorrow. And this week, just to give you a little summary of my week, has been pretty busy. A lot's just been going on work wise. And yeah, it's just been really busy. But I hope that your week has been treating you well. I hope that your month has been treating you well now that we are done with January. If you got also, let me stop for a second. If you are one of those people who has like a what do you call it? A resolution for the year. I hope that you are continuing that process until February and throughout the year. I just want to say let's not lose sight of the things that we're trying to improve on ourselves. For me, I really don't have per se New Year's resolutions. There are things that I am working on, but I'm more focused on the things that I wasn't able to achieve in 2024 and how I'm going to push myself or attempt to achieve it in 2025. But also just not losing sight of the progress that I have made in 2024 and just continuing to go in a good direction. Now, I know that's like, girl, you starting off the episode with just those hard hitting things or conversations and so forth, but it was on my spirit to talk about it. So let's go ahead and get into this week's episode. So last week I was having a conversation with you guys about how that I am working to make connections outside of my race. I was speaking about that this week I was going to do an episode on how I am approaching these relationships now that I'm more self-aware of my bias in regards to making connections outside of my race. Now that my environment has changed and now that my mindset just has changed, as well too. But I decided that for this week we are going to be tackling a different topic. And the reason why is that in the news, I've been hearing, and also in conversation, just actually at work this past week, I've been hearing a lot about this whole DEI situation, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I felt like it is only right as a black woman, just as a woman in general, that I gave my perspective on how I feel about it. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I really didn't know much about DEI prior. Obviously, I've heard it in passing, but I've never really got into what exactly it means. How does it affect me? How does it affect, my community or other communities or workplace or, you know, I've never really got into the nitty gritty about it. But before we go ahead and get into this week's podcast episode, I want to go ahead and get the housekeeping rules out of the way. If you're listening to this podcast on Spotify, be sure to hit the follow notification button so Spotify lets you know when I release a new episode. As well, leave me a comment on what you enjoy about the podcast and give me a 5-star rating. This is how you can support my podcast. Now, the disclaimer is I am not a licensed psychiatrist or therapist. My suggestions and my guests are based on general knowledge and life experiences. If you're considering making significant changes or dealing with personal issues, seek and talk to a licensed mental health professional. So, before I go ahead and get into what I learned about DEI, I just want to point out that this podcast is a safe space for us to grow, for us to learn. And the reason why I wanted to have this discussion is because I was unaware and now I am more aware. And I want to be able to share with people what I have learned, so that they can become more aware. So I just want to remind people that, we should not be looking at others sideways just because it's something that they don't know. Like I mentioned before, I wasn't too familiar about DEI. Now I'm more familiar about DEI after doing my research and understanding the impact, of it. So let me go ahead and get into the couple of things that I have learned based on my research. What I was able to understand how DEI affects our or the community is that it's based off of just a couple of different bullet points. The first one is identity, and basically that means who we are. It includes things like race, gender, age, religion, economic status, as well as just much more. It's not limited to those things. Now, we also have equity, which means making sure everyone has a fair chance by considering their different situations and needs. It also looks at the past and ongoing fairness. Now, the last one that I have here is fairness, which means treating people fairly, making sure everyone has the same chances, resources, and support no matter their background. It also means fixing unfair systems to make things more equal. Let's go ahead and take a quick break. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning into Reflection by Abia. Feel free to check out the podcast Facebook and Instagram page. The links will be available in the show notes. Let's get back to the podcast. Conversations that I've had with people is that DEI has been focused really on the working population. But what I also realize is that DEI is also a part of education. It is a part of our community as well. DEI can possibly affect the programs that, underserved, I guess you could say, communities have. Um, mentoring programs, scholarships, staff training, recruitment to find the right staff members to train people who are underserved. All this is a part of this diversity, equity, and inclusion. So, in regards into community, it affects the resources, healthcare, housing, job opportunities. If we are not, well, not I want to say we, but I'll say we. If we are not getting the proper resources in order to make sure that we can survive and have the best for ourselves in our adulthood, then how are we to make it? You know what I'm saying? We will always be in the same position 9 times out of 10. Is it possibility that without these type of programs you can have a better future? Of course. But I want to be honest in saying that certain programs that schools have, certain programs that your community has, can influence and set you up for a better future. You know, one of the things I thought about when I was looking at education and community is even remember back in junior high school that I had went to this sleepaway camp. Like my mom, she was always the kind of person who put me into programs that will uplift me, programs that will open my eyes so that I will see past the neighborhood that I lived in, because I lived in Harlem. I lived in a community that it was it wasn't the suburbs. Yes, and I'm saying it was very different. And one of the things that I remember is that she was trying to expose me to places that I may not ordinarily see in my day to day. So one of the things that she did is she put me in this program where my mom had me go to this sleepaway camp. And I think it was I want to say it was in the summertime, and I want to say maybe during the week. This was a long time ago. But one of the things that I remember is that this sleepaway camp was in the suburbs. It was in upstate New York. We were able to learn about nature. We would have certain type of classes, reading classes, math classes. We would be exposed to science. I remember going to the sleepaway camp. This was the first time that I saw the Big Dipper. I believe it was the Big Dipper, Little Dipper. You know what? That's not even, it could have been either one of them. But this was the first time that I seen the sky so clear, and I was either able to point out the Big Dipper or Little Dipper. And this is not something that I was able to see in my neighborhood, you know. And being exposed to those type of environments made me realize, and it also pushed me to want to have the best future for myself, because I said that this is the place in which I want to be, even though, yes, I am in a community where it's questionable, a lot of things are going on. If you work hard enough, you can be here. You understand what I'm saying? You can have more than what you're seeing in front of you today. So again, I'm thinking about education, and I'm thinking about community. This type of program was likely a diversity, equity, and inclusion program. It probably was, you know. But without this type of program and the other programs that I was in, who knows where my life could have gone. I hear where people say, like, okay, this is the workplace and the workplace is being affected, but it's just not only the workplace. I do want to point that out. Now, based on my research, going back, let's talk about the workplace, since, you know, that's where primarily everybody's brain is that based on my research, many people feel that the DEI policies make it hard to choose between someone's identity and qualifications. Okay, so obviously we know that with DEI and the certain programs, a lot of times it's underserved communities, black communities, Spanish communities, possibly. people who don't have the right resources and so forth, and they're trying to get the right resources so they can have a better future for themselves. And then you have people who just have qualifications, people who may have been raised in a community where they've been given the proper education and right resources and so forth, and they just have the qualifications to do the job. Maybe they went to a school to get a certain skill set that will make them qualify for whatever type of position that they're going to apply for as an adult. Now, what's happening is that these two things are competing against each other. Are we to pick a person who is basically, a DEI, under the umbrella of DEI, or are we going to pick the person who's underneath the umbrella of having the proper or having the skill set or qualifications that is needed for the position? Now, my opinion, and I'm going to be honest with you, is, let's say, for example, you have two candidates. One who falls underneath, as I mentioned before, the DEI umbrella. One who has the proper qualifications, or highly qualified for the position, and does not fit the criteria of DEI. Let's say that you had a position at your company, right? What do you choose? And this is where, personally, I was just kind of like, it's hard for me because, again, I've come from the community where you weren't exposed to, unless you look for it, and your parents put you in certain stuff, you weren't exposed to better. So this was a tough situation, or a tough question for me on what I would personally choose. And the fact of the matter is, after I thought about it, I said, you know what? I'm going to pick the most qualified candidate. Because at the end of the day, for me, in my situation, in my brain, not saying that this is your opinion or anything like that, race, gender, sexuality, and all those, other factors are not relevant to me. Like, they're relevant, but if I am a person who has a job and I want to hire a candidate to fill that position, I'm looking for the person who is qualified for the position. To me, it does not matter what your identity is. You understand what I'm saying? As long as you could do what I expect for you to do for the position, then I'm going to hire you. Now, would I hire the person who is less qualified because they're underneath the DEI umbrella? I'm going to be honest with you, no. Because, again, I want to hire the most, qualified candidate. So the person could be black, the person could be Spanish, the person could be raised in an impoverished community or unserved community. As long as they have the skill set that is needed for the position, it doesn't matter to me where you actually are coming from. But the bigger question that we pretty much have in this whole DI situation is, what happens when people don't get the chance to become the best candidate because of their environment lacks the right resources and opportunities? This is where I feel that DEI helps, because it gives people who have fewer opportunities a fair chance to succeed. The fact of the matter is that there needs to be an even playing field. Okay. Now, I didn't jot this down in my notes, but I'm going to be honest with you guys. I kind of feel like, and it sounds cruel, and I'm not trying to be cruel. I feel like there will always be a community that will be unsuccessful. It's just the way that society is. Would I prefer it for everybody to be able to provide for themselves and have the proper resources and so forth? Yes, I would love that. But in the society that we are in today, I just don't see that as a possibility, because I feel like people are not willing to work together. I feel like people, I'm gonna be honest with you, when we talk about financials, a lot of people are money hungry. A lot of people don't want to see other people thrive. Although, like, this whole thing is we want the proper resources and we don't want people to feel excluded. I don't want people to feel excluded. I want everybody to be able to win. Unfortunately, I just feel like it's not, it's going to be very hard because everybody has to be on the same accord. Now, many people feel that also the program creates division. And in some ways, it does. But what people have to also realize, or what people should think about, is that we are already separated. We are already separated because people who are in a disadvantaged community or don't have the proper resources are already to the side, from the people who have the proper skill set or the proper qualifications. So, although, like, people say, okay, well, it's separating the two, yes, but we're already separated. The point is that DEI is trying to, I feel like DEI is trying to give people, again, I know I'm repeating myself, a fighting chance. Yes, and I'm saying they're trying to give them a fighting chance so that they can have a better situation. And as I mentioned, at the end of the day, I believe yes, we are making progress and society is changing. Things aren't the same as it was in the past, but I also feel like we can't erase the past. I just really honestly think there needs to be a middle ground. There needs to be a middle ground. And as I mentioned before, we as a society have to work together to create real change so that everyone is thriving. You know, Unfortunately, I just believe we will, although we will continue to see improvements, there will always be that pushback when it comes to progress. Not like I mentioned before, some people don't want other people to win. And that's just how our society is. They're worried about themselves or their community, you know. This is a tough conversation to have. Either way, I think I want the best for this country. I want, when I look at other countries and how they're structured, it's things could be better. Now that I am have more knowledge today than I did a couple of days ago, a couple of weeks ago, I want to follow this more. I want to follow these policies more. I want to learn more. And I just advise you guys to do your own, research as well too. And I know that I told you guys in a couple weeks ago that this podcast is going to go in different directions. Not necessarily different directions, but it's going to go in the direction that I feel like it needs to go. And we're going to have conversations about different topics, things that affect our society, as a whole. It's not about race, it's not about identity, it's just society as a whole. And I do think that this will affect, society as a whole as different companies or organizations start to change, their structure or their policies and everything like that. I just prayed that people would put thought into it before. That's my hope, you know. But I do hope that I know I'm repeating myself when I say I do hope. I hope that this information helped I hope that, I was trying to be as accurate as possible in everything that I was detailing. But again, I wanted to pass this information along to you guys. If you have thoughts on it, I think it's important for us to have these discussions. So if you have thoughts on it or information or something that I should, know, I guess information and or correct, let me know in the comments, because like I said before, I think this is a very important conversation to have, because this is not only something that's going to affect us today. This is our future, and we want to make sure that the next generation and so forth has it better than us. So, guys, that is where I'm going to leave this week's podcast episode. I hope that you have enjoyed this episode. And again, I hope that you have learned something from me and everything. So, stay blessed out there in those streets. Make sure that you treat others kindly out there in those streets. And God willing, I will talk to you guys in the next podcast episode. Thank you for listening to Reflection by Abia. Let me know in the comments section what you thought about today's episode, and share the podcast with your friends and family. The link will be available in the show notes.